Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Nargis Kasyanova, and I'm a senior fellow at the Davis Center for Russian and Eurasian Studies, running its program on Central Asia. Thank you for joining us today. For the past months, we have been focusing on COVID for obvious reasons, and we had a number of COVID-related events. Today, we decided to do something different and talk about another topic, repatriation and reintegration of ISIS affiliates in Central Asia. Unfortunately, our region has been a major supplier of militants for ISIS. And starting last year, the governments of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan started repatriating ISIS affiliates. And that's something that we will be talking about today. And we have an excellent panel of experts with us. Vera Mironova is a Russian-American academic, writer, producer, and policy consultant specializing in armed conflict. She has conducted fieldwork in numerous active conflict zones and post-conflict regions all over the world. From 2016 and to 2017, she was embedded with Iraqi Special Operation Forces during the Mosul operation. And before that, she was embedded with far-right Ukrainian armed groups in Donbass. She is an author of the book From Freedom Fighters to Jihadists, Human Resources of Non-State Armed Groups, published by Oxford University Press. And we're very happy that Vera is an affiliate with the Davis Center for Russian and Eurasian Studies. Welcome, Vera. We also have with us Farukh Chariyev, who is a project component manager at the NGO Barkaror Hayot in Uzbekistan. He has worked in the social sphere for over 7 years. He's a graduate of the US International Visitor Leadership Program, Youth and Civic Activism. And since June 2020, Farukh has managed the project, providing support to vulnerable families and children, including those affected by migration, returned from armed conflict zones, funded and coordinated by the EU and UNICEF. His NGO, Barkaror Hayot, has worked on rehabilitation and reintegration of women and children returned from conflict zones, Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan since 2019. Welcome, Farukh. And we also have with us Rustam Azizi, who is Deputy Director of the Center for Islamic Studies under the President of the Republic of Tajikistan. He's a prominent religious studies expert and played an important role in the establishment of national consultative working groups in Tajikistan, engaging diverse groups in a dialogue platform. So I'm sure we'll have a very exciting discussion today. And I want to start with Vera. Vera, can you tell us about these people trapped in Syria, Iraq, and so on in the Middle East, and those who are returning? Who are they? What do we need to know about them? Can we categorize them in any way? What are the specificities? Okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So there is a lot of discussions lately about women affiliated with ISIS, I guess because all the men are dead and now ISIS is mostly female organization. But a lot of people are watching very closely Westerners, members of the group, and ignoring people from Central Asia or Russia, which is very dangerous in a sense that, okay, fine that Finland or Sweden has a couple of people, right, that everyone is watching. But countries like Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, they have hundreds and thousands. So in terms of magnitude, this is a problem. Plus, even physically, you could watch 5 people in one country, let's say in Germany, but actually monitoring thousands of people in Central Asia, well, that's harder. Plus, those are actually different people. So people who joined from West, they joined for different reasons and they play different roles inside the organization compared to people who came from other regions. So, and their behavior right now, for example, is in camps in northern Syria is also different. So I just asked before preparing for this conference, I asked people I know in camps in Syria, I was like, okay, tell me about Central Asians in camps, they're females. Who are they? How are they, what are roles? How radical are they? And people I know who are also ISIS members, but not from Central Asia, told me that We couldn't also talk about Central Asia in general, because even by country it differs. So for example, I was told that foreign fighters and foreign females from Kazakhstan who came to ISIS, they're usually like, okay, they are not like ISIS stars, jihadi of the year type of people. They were not involved in anything extraordinary bad, and mostly they are just whatever is the government, they're going to follow it. Then so in the general spectrum of things, they said like Kazakh is not a big problem. Of course there are like individual problems, but in general it's one of the most okay group of people. Then talking about the Uzbeks, and here I could not say if they are citizens of Uzbekistan or citizens of Kyrgyzstan, right? They said that it's a very mixed bag. So you could have women who are also sitting at home doing nothing, and they don't quite care where to be in ISIS or any other country. But in terms of Uzbeks, they are very hardcore and professional people, I guess, with experience in IMU. So those are very smart, very professional, and they are like fighting jihadi thing, and they should be seriously watched. And in terms of Tajikistan, again, it's not like my opinion, I'm just telling you what people in camp think. Tajiki women inside ISIS, when ISIS was in power, they were not nothing important. You know, they were sitting home doing plov and bread, and they were not active in anything extraordinarily bad. But right now in camps, they are very active ISIS supporters. So like right now, majority of women in camps, they are not supporting ISIS anymore. But Tajiks are disproportionately supporting it. And we think it's just because Tajikistan did not repatriate themselves folks from those camps, so they're still seeing ISIS as their only hope of getting out. While everyone else, like Uzbeks, Kazakhs, they when they learned that they're going home, they were like, okay, fine, I don't need this ISIS anymore, I'm gonna go home. But Tajiks are always named as one of the most radical groups inside the camp, along with Uyghurs. And there are a lot of fightings between anti-ISIS women and those radical women. So there was a fight last week, I think there was a Tajiki woman whose head was like smashed with a metal bar. That's the type of fighting that is going on in Al-Hol. So when we're talking about like repatriation, it's so different that it's like even different inside one country. So we could not move repatriation programs, just, you know, it worked here, we could use it here. They're very different people individual countries have to deal with. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what you said, that ISIS is mostly female now? What evidence do we have?
Well, the main evidence would be that males are dead. As easy as that. So basically, of course, there are still males, and they're even fighting right now in a desert in Syria, but they're just dead. Mm-hmm. So, or in prison without any means of communication, right? If they were talking about Hasaq prison the prisons in Syria or prison in Iraq. Well, females are, many of them are free, somewhere hiding. They're returned. They are in camps where they have access to cell phones, so hello propaganda that's been actively spread and so on. Mm-hmm. So they are, and also if we're talking about local ISIS members, let's take Iraq and Mosul, and males are hiding. If they survived magically, they're hiding and they're very careful, but women move around bringing food to this hideouts and so on. So they are now the bone of this organization.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, women.
That's why watching them is now crucial. Like males are all either hiding so quietly that you don't see or hear them, and you would never see or hear them. Okay. But females, they feel more free, I would say, to do whatever they want to do.
Okay. Well, women have been very active throughout the world in different places, it seems.
Well, let's look at the bright side. You know, we have feminism. You know, it's the first army in Middle East that is like totally female now. I think it's a bright side.
Okay, after the Amazons. Okay, Thank you very much. Let's listen to Farukh now. Farukh, what can you tell us about the situation in Uzbekistan? And given what Vera said, that these groups are quite different, and there are some specificities to the Uzbek ISIS affiliates. You need to unmute yourself.
Oh, can you hear me now? Thank you, Nargis. Thank you, Vera. Well, general information about the ISIS affiliates, repatriates in Uzbekistan. Like so far we had two humanitarian operations, and one was on May 30, 2019, and we brought back 156 people. It's 48 women and 107 children. And the second was in October 2019, and it was Mehar 2 and 64 children. And then we have about 400 self-returnees. Most of them are women and children. They returned from Turkey and Afghanistan. And then among those self-returnees, there were also men, about 20 men, but most of them were prosecuted. Our NGO, International Social Education Center, Barker Hayot, is the only specialized center for working with this target group since 2019. By now, we have covered 18 families. 2 of them are guardian families, and mothers are in prison in Iraq, 62 children, and 2 of them are adults now among those 62 kids. There are all of them are in different states of rehabilitation because of the different dates of return. Like the last ones returned in March. So basically, the model of rehabilitation created on the basis of our center is focused on rehabilitation within the family, with the active support of other family members and close people. Our model consists of 3 stages: the first stage, active rehabilitation, and passive rehabilitation, like free swimming. This process takes from 6 months to 2 years normally. The partners of this process are law enforcement and other government agencies, which help us. We would like to know the role of donor organizations like sponsors who work with us at the moment. It's UN agency, UNICEF, and we're doing the project on providing support to vulnerable families and children affected by migration and returning from zones of armed conflict since June 2012, 20, and International Organization for Migration, UN Agency for Migration, in the provision of direct assistance in the form of equipment to create conditions for self-employment and increase the economic opportunities of families of returnees. Currently, we're thinking on multiplying this experience in other regions of the Republic of Uzbekistan. As right now, we're doing this rehabilitation in Surkandarya region, which is in the south of Uzbekistan. It's the border with Afghanistan and Tajikistan. Then overall rehabilitation plan is a long-term strategy normally. In this process, there are 7 no's or don'ts which we use. It's like you can't if they don't want. There is no 100% guarantee of success. You can't think that the issue will be resolved by itself. We cannot force them to do what we want. Let them make their own decisions. No time frame for rehabilitation. It might take several years. You cannot work without a trained team. It's like psychologists, social workers, and lawyers. And well, like to achieve the effective rehabilitation and reintegration, it's necessary to set the following tasks at the moment, we think. Conducting a legal analysis of national legislation, interdepartmental regulations for compliance with international human rights standards. Collection of data on the observance, violation of human rights and freedoms in relation to this category of persons. Analysis of the effectiveness of rehabilitation work. On the one hand, This is the availability or lack of professional narrow profile training of employees responsible for reintegration and rehabilitation who are in contact with this category. On the other hand, it's necessary to monitor and evaluate the quality of the work done. And some recommendations which we prepared, like we think, further development and strengthening the intersectoral work between the organizations, NGOs, and government organizations, civil society, and conducting educational programs for employees of the involved structures aimed at improving the skills of working with these groups. It's local community, public education, law enforcement, guardianship service, and others. Development of the local psychological support system by creating mobile teams, psychologists, social workers, and lawyers, which will go to their house and reach them out in the place where they're in comfort. In comparative analysis of children among several categories needed within family, with the guardians, and orphanage, and source village, which will be indicators of success and the choice of the most acceptable conditions for the socialization of children, which can be provided under conditions of comfort and safety, which will affect the faster socialization and integration. Based on the experience gained, the development of standards and monitoring systems indicators of change for assessing targets program, strengthening the emphasis on rehabilitation, the employment process as a stimulant to increase social and economic opportunities. Development and implementation of programs for assessing the process of destructive change of a religious nature upon completion of the stage of rehabilitation and reintegration.
Farooq, maybe we can get to the recommendations at the end, but
Okay.
can I ask you a couple of questions? Well, first, in practical terms, okay, my first question would be, you mentioned persecution, that some people are persecuted. What kind of sentences they get? And are there worries that while in prison, they will be, spreading the word and sort of, doing the propaganda? That's the first question. Second question, you mentioned active rehabilitation and passive rehabilitation. What does it mean in practical terms? What does active rehabilitation involve and passive rehabilitation involve? And also, how do you make the judgment if the person is rehabilitated? Okay, so if you could explain to us.
Questions. For the first question, I think there are no worries with them, but they were prosecuted under the conditions of terrorism for in our law, according to our laws, and they're in prisons from 10 to maybe 10, 15 years, will be prosecuted for that long. And so far, there are no worries that they will spread the word and radicalize others. I haven't heard something about it, and we haven't heard. And the second question is active and passive. Active rehabilitation, it's when we actively work with them. It's social workers, it's psychologists, it's lawyers, and we prepare all opportunities for them to be socialized back into their communities. And the passive means we'll be just monitoring what's going on, what's happening, in 1 year, in 2 years, what changes are. We cannot just say that, okay, we've done it. You know what I mean? The process might take several years. So that's the difference between active and passive.
Mm-hmm. So by local communities, you mean mahalas, right? Mahalas are fully on board. That's the
yes, exactly.
Okay. And that's the Uzbek model, or you pulled experiences from other places?
It's our model, and well, that's what we are doing, since we have 18 families and 62 kids, and in Uzbekistan, we think it's a lot. It's huge amount of people. So and other NGOs are also dealing with them, but I think most of them are learning from us as well, because our center and our organization was visited by them, by all our other partners in Uzbekistan, just to see how we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
we cannot say that it's like the best practice, but it is what we're doing now.
Okay. And well, I promise not to do a COVID event, but does COVID affect this situation, given the that it takes up the resources and it's more difficult to do things now? Do you feel
there
the organization?
There are a lot of help and support which also was given by government to them. Like they're considered as migrants as well, and most of them were jobless. And by government in the period of pandemic, in this like 4 or 5 months, we've now, of course, we helped as well. We were with the community like mahallas, and they get support from them. Like basically, it's like with cash, because when you don't work and you need money, because you have family, you have kids. That's why I think they get pretty good support by government as well, even the houses to live. So that's it.
And one last small question: was it easy to have mahallas work with you?
Yes, of course. Like in our organization, the best, the #1 partner is mahallas.
Okay.
Because it's the people who work with people close, even more than us, because they live in those mahallas, and they also have professionals, and we also provided trainings for them on social work, on how to work with those category of people. It was done by the support of UNICEF and European Union project.
So they were not saying we don't want these people back?
No, they don't.
Okay, nobody was saying that. Okay, great.
I haven't heard in Uzbekistan that they don't want them back, but I don't know, maybe some of them did.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's move to Rustam. Rustam, can you tell us about the situation in Tajikistan?
So, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
So, good morning, good evening, good day, friends. So, if we want to talk about Tajikistan experience, so we know that foreign fighters and families in Iraq and Syria hail from different countries. And there are some differences in their repatriation, reintegration approaches. And if we compare between Kazakhstan, for example, and Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, so I can say that if Kazakhstan conveys the radicalization project, so we in Tajikistan, we emphasize pragmatic state protectionism. So why? According to our Deputy Minister of Interior Affairs, about 2,000, exactly 1,899 of our citizens, they were involved in ISIL in Iraq and Syria. So, and the first group came on April 30 last year from Baghdad. There was a direct flight from Baghdad to Dushanbe, was organized by government of the Republic of Tajikistan with the support of Iraqi and Kuwaiti governments and UNICEF as well. And in total, 84 children were brought to their homeland. And however, Tajikistan had a unique experience of returning its citizens because during the period of civil war, the number of displaced people or refugees were more than it's now. And actually, we do have some experience. So that's why it gave us and gave actually our government possibility to manage the situation. And actually, since 2015, Tajikistan also has introduced the automatic amnesty for individuals who voluntarily returned and reported to authorities that they actually pending. And in accordance to this, 111 actually people were amnested. It's by April of last year. And now their numbers maybe exceed 200. Of these, only 2 returned to war zone to date. So we can say about very successful rehabilitation if just 2 from 200 returned. So, and what was Tajiki approach actually? The 84 returned children, they belong total to 47 families, and only 3 of them are currently over 16 years old. The mother of most children, actually 43 in total, they are in Baghdad prison. And actually work now continues to return our remain citizens from Iraq, and now according to our Minister of Foreign Affairs, 575 women and children still based in Syria refugee camps. And on behalf of government of Tajikistan, our ambassador in Kuwait and Iraq, Zubaydullah Zubayzoda, actually traveled to Damascus and held talks with representatives of Bashar al-Assad government and armed opposition. And in his interview to Radio Ozodi, October last year, he actually announced that their return should be in near future. But unfortunately, these plans were not realized because of result of Turkish military operation in northern Syria, and now because of COVID pandemic. So, and actually, what did we do with those with returnees? Actually, they were the working group for them. It is includes 12 ministries and different committees, and nowadays, by July of last year, actually, according to Ministry of Education, 79 of 84 children returned were placed in 17 orphanages and special boarding schools throughout the country. The rationale for this decision was the belief that it will be easier for children to forget the horrors of war if they actually do not have contacts with other children who also had similar experience. At the same time, guided by the principle of preserving families, siblings are not separated, and they sent to the same institution. And 4 of returnees, 3 of which are over 16 years old, and 1 child of a young mother, they live in a special hostel under the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. And so what is the actions done? So the social worker of Ministry of Education actually stated that only relatives of 15 out of 47 families applied to receive their repatriate relatives. Some relatives actually don't want to accept returned children, and they are agreeing that they fear for their children may have a negative effect on their own children. And further, they don't want to attract the attention of law enforcement agencies and social services, etc. And here is the financial side of issue as well. So, and actually, here is another problem: the fact that children's current parents have not yet been officially deprived of their parental rights, so it makes adoption process currently legally impossible. So, and actually, I want also to say some words about our self-returnees. So, the majority of them, they were amnested, and but they face a certain stigma, and some of them noted that they are able to go out about, but their movement is pretty limited because they are required weekly check-ins in their police inspector, so that's why they cannot move far from their homes. And also most of them live of the help of relatives or works in low-paying jobs, and they cannot also receive loans or social benefits for unemployment. And there is also an example, a returnee from Syria who was actually a medical student. For 4 years, he tries to resume his medical studies at the university, and he is not succeed yet. And also another amnested citizen said that because he returned from Syria, the family of his brother's bride broke off engagement because they are fearing of negative influence of his brother. So due to date, actually Tajik media has poorly reflected the reintegration process. There were just several reports that and media coverage of issue is pretty weak, and not a single NGO has received permission to conduct any activities with this group of people today. The only possible form of civil society participant has been the provision of material assistance and to repatriate children. And ideally, actually, civil society involvement would be used to maximize their they actually should be engaged more and in order to be in their rehabilitation processes. But for now, actually, Tajikistan needs support to train specialists, well-trained specialists to work with the repatriates, including psychologists, and social workers, and others. But what can I say? For now, according to our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we are continuously trying to bring all our citizens in Syria back, and actually we just waiting for suitable conditions to bring them back, and it is just we need so that we can manage do it as far as it's possible. So if there are any questions about them, so I am ready to answer. I tried not to use more time, but if you have questions, so
we have questions.
I am completely in your service. So thank you.
So much. Thank you so much. It was extremely interesting. I have a couple of questions. One is that the Tajik state wants to bring them back. Not all governments want the ISIS affiliates back. Why does the Tajik government want to bring them back? That would be the first question. And the second question, do women who returned kind of face the same stigma as men? And well, consequently, do they have a chance to find an employment? And given the high unemployment in the country in general, I would understand that if the government helps them find an employment, then other people might get upset that, you know, why these people are getting assistance while we are not getting help. So yeah, if you could say a couple of words about
that. I got it. So just one question. So you know, our media in all countries, they were actually demonizing them for 5 years. And actually, it is actually normal that society reacts like that, because when media and government said that they are terrorists, they are, for example, actually bad guys and girls, so, and now say, okay, they are victims. So, to be honest, it's not easy to convince the people. And actually, there was a survey done by our Ministry of Education. They asked parents if they agree their children to go to the same school with those children returned from Iraq and Syria, and the majority of parents denied. Say, no, we don't want. And that's why they now are in orphanage or special schools. And about work, so actually unemployment is a common problem for region and for Tajikistan. And when you have restrictions and you cannot travel because they are amnested in Tajikistan, but maybe if they travel to Russia or somewhere, they may have face problems. That's why they work actually in some survival jobs with very low payment and with help of their relatives. And women face less stigma than men because women were not active combatants, and the majority of them, they actually wives of combatants. So that's why women faced less stigma or less stress than men.
What about my first question? Why does the Tajik government want to bring them back? What's the motivation?
Yeah, actually, our president said they are our citizens, so we do have it's their constitutional rights. So even they committed crimes, so we are ready to support them, to help them. So it is our official position. It was actually declined by our president. So in Tajikistan, if you know, during the civil war, we have more than 1 million replaced citizens. So, and we bring all them back. So it's even not a question, and we have never even asked ourselves, should we bring them back or no? It is official position that we have to bring them all back if it is possible. And we have to do all our best. It's official position of our government.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me ask Vera to first maybe to comment on what you said, and also say a couple of words about the situation in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, because we didn't have presenters from these countries. And as we know, Kazakhstan was the first to bring its citizens back in, I think it was January 2019, famous Operation Zhusan. And okay, 5 minutes for you, Vera, and then we'll go to questions. We already received some excellent questions.
Awesome, thank you. So talking about Kazakhstan, of course, we need to give them big credit for being the first country to repatriate so many people and so on, absolutely. But I want to be very careful with this, for example, operation, because they did take a lot, but they didn't take everyone. So here the issue is, like, I'm not saying it's their fault, right? But we need to be very careful that there are people who want to be repatriated and people who do not want to be repatriated. So for example, I personally know several families, Kazakh, who managed to hide when they were taking them home and run away. So one is, several people are right now in Idlib, they managed to escape from Al-Hol, and one is in Al-Hol, as far as I know, and there are very, very big problems right now ongoing involving this family in Al-Hol.
And Al-Hol is, if you can...
camp in Syria, or the biggest camp for foreign women. So they are absolutely super pro-ISIS, and there are some problems with that. Kyrgyzstan is a very specific country, as we know. In terms of repatriation, it's even worse. So a lot of, for example, European countries refuse to take their citizens, and so does Kazakhstan. So Kyrgyzstan, sorry, multiple times they said they are, but guess what? It's one of the rare countries that did not take kids from Baghdad prison. And the conditions in Baghdad prison are absolutely terrible for kids. I mean, absolutely. Like, they don't even have toys. They're playing with like handmade toys made of the plastic bottles. Like nothing. Like, I mean, it's terrible. And Kyrgyzstan refuses to repatriate them. And the question is why? Well, maybe it's correlated with the fact that majority of Kyrgyz citizens who went to Syria, they're not actually Kyrgyz. They are Uzbeks from Osh and, south. So maybe that's also part of the reason, but it's a very big problem because Also, when we're talking about like Uzbeks who were really hardcore in ISIS, males back in ISIS when it was having territory, when we're saying Uzbeks, many of them were not actually citizens of Uzbekistan. So many of the hardcore ones were actually citizens of Kyrgyzstan. So they are quite radical fellows.
Yeah, and that there is this issue of categorizing. Yes, when we say Uzbek, whom do we mean by Uzbek? Is it?
We don't know because like they don't know each other's citizenship, right? They never talk about it. So the best thing, at least right now, I mean, with due respect to Central Asia, people whom we interview, Iraqi military or civilians who were coming from ISIS territory, they kind of started separating Central Asia from everything else. But in the beginning of the war, for example, in the beginning of operation of Mosul, we would ask civilians, okay, and who is like ISIS fighters in your neighborhood? And they were like, Chinese. I'm like, does your Chinese dude speaks Arabic with the same accent I do? They were like, yes. I was like, okay, well, they're not Chinese. But like, like I'm not blaming them, right? They never interacted with Central Asia or whatever. But the thing is that it's impossible to separate by citizenship because that's what they are not telling each other. They have no idea. So we barely manage now to kind of distinguish Kazakh, Uzbeks. Okay, fine, but citizens should just forget about it.
By origin, not like what passport, or by the passport.
No, by passport it's impossible. They just don't know. Like the Kazakh family that is involved in a very bad stuff right now in that hole. I'm like trying to find out, what city, because they could be Russian citizens, right? And no one knows. Because they never even, I mean, it's kind of considered very impolite to ask about, Tagut civilian government documents.
So when the governments are repatriating, they need to make sure these are their citizens, and then work.
That's also very tricky. But like, I'm not sure how tricky it is for Central Asia, but for Russia, it's very tricky because a lot of Russian citizens have several second citizenship in Europe.
Yes,
but Europe does not take them. So I have a Chechen German who is now pretending to be Chechen Russian. Like she's German, but German does not take, and she would be prosecuted in Germany. So she's like, yeah, I'm Russian. I was like, I mean, even like you don't speak a word of Russian. I mean, come on. I think she was born in Germany.
Okay. Very interesting.
So they're playing with the citizenship thing, so it's very tricky.
Right. Maybe also, Vera, if you could tell us a little bit about the Kazakh approach to rehabilitation, if possible.
Kazakh approach to the rehabilitation, again, we need to be very clear that they have a very mild case in terms of this woman being radical to start with, right? So they do prosecute quite a number of women. So I know that they prosecute for being a recruiter. So if a woman was a recruiter, she goes to prison. And if she went through military training. So ISIS had 2 female Jamaats, female whatever, the military groups, Aisha and Nusayba. And so if a woman was in there, she's going to prison. Again, like officially, I don't know the amnesty, what's going to happen after. But technically, she goes to prison. So they do prosecute women. And then they are, I mean, how they exactly working with them right now, it's not clear because also it's very, different regions, I guess, approach it differently. So, and there are a lot of organizations involved in working with them. So I'm not quite sure what is exactly going on the ground.
My sense is that it's along the lines outlined by Faruk, but with less emphasis on the local communities. But NGOs are involved, and there are groups of psychologists, lawyers, and so on and so forth, and that also religious experts, theologians. They work with them in prisons and outside of prisons.
No, now in prisons, no one works in Kazakhstan. Like because of COVID, it's absolutely totally closed. Right. And even the woman who were like in charge of the repatriation, she said she had not been there in prisons because they just closed. So no one is working with prisons.
Yeah. I suspect that COVID would crawl into our conversation. So okay. Thank you very much. This is excellent. And we have some questions, and let me start. So the audience wondering, what is the social background of these people, of these citizens, And what is the motivation? Is it just the idea kind of jihad that drove them to join ISIS, or there were some financial and social incentives? And whoever in the panel wants to take this.
I guess it's
Okay,
a general question, so I guess I'm taking it. It's a totally mixed bag. I have talking about, like, let's say only Central Asia, right? So I have women who were like hardcore pro jihad, like just go and, you know, on a tank and explode yourself. I have women who are not sure where they're going. Iran, Iraq, you know, sounds the same, kind of whatever. From Central Asia, I have a very bizarre case of a woman who had a kid who had cancer, and somehow, I don't know how gloriously smart she was, she saw that medicine in Islamic State is very good, like, you know, like Israel, Islamic State, you know, and she brought her sick kid with cancer to ISIS, to Syria. Well, let's put it mildly, it was not a good idea, right? So it took a lot of people with a very high level of contacts inside ISIS to get her and the kid out. So the kid is in Europe for treatment right now. But like, that's just how different ideas those people had about where they're actually going. Like, I could not say that, you know, a lot of them are right now saying, oh, like we were kidnapped and taken to ISIS, like by our husband. I'm like, seriously, like 5 border crossing and 3 airports? Are you kidding me? But the thing is that the idea why they themselves went, they're all over the board.
Okay, so these are not just the disadvantaged who had, you know.
No, absolutely not. I mean, come on, we're a famous Tajik guy, Gulmurad Halimov,
Right.
disadvantaged. I mean, a powerful guy in the country. In Osh, I know Uzbek who's like a dentist, also not the last person in the town, right? So yeah, dentist, terrorism, I see the correlation, right? Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely, totally mixed bag.
And what are the incentives? Were there any financial incentives, social incentives? Well, some women followed their husbands, obviously, and yes, if you can.
Yeah, no, I mean, they were all, because some women, it also depends when you came there. Some people came in 2012, what money? And okay, there was no kind of salary every month because there was no ISIS, but you could loot and take stuff, but it's not assured. And then, yes, inside ISIS, they did pay the monthly salary, but it was also jumping back and forth. It's different. It's really different by time, place, and, you know, so we could not just generalize if they went there for money. Yeah, well, there were people who went there for money in terms of like actually robbing a factory and stealing a couple of millions. Yeah, those people actually succeeded. And there were like people who are saying like, oh yeah, we went there to get a monthly salary of like $20 and live in our house and never enter it. Like, they even used the word, it was weird, like when I first heard it, about the ISIS, when ISIS started like bringing Russian speaking foreign fighters from Jaish Muhajirin wa Ansar, I was really surprised by the word they used for money that they will receive, right? You would say salary or loot, right? But many, especially Central Asian, actually, they were using the word welfare. They were like, ISIS would pays better welfare than like Jabhat al-Nusra.
So it's a welfare state, basically.
Yeah, and I was like, this is a weird, like in Russian it says пособие, right? The Russian word was used пособие. And it's like this word you use for like pensioners and disabled people, right? It's just really, like, you know, as a Russian speaker, it really shocked me. I'm like, wow, guys.
But overall, yeah, it seems ISIS operations were better funded because I mean, very few were going to Afghanistan, for example. But to the Middle East, more people went, and, you know, they found a way. And
it was easy. And as one Russian-speaking dude said in a famous audio that he sent as a recruitment to all other Russian-speaking dudes, he said he was kind of talking to guys who are stayed and fight in Caucasus. He was like, okay, guys, when you are still eating leaves in mountains of Chechnya, we are fighting a 5-star jihad. I'm like, yeah, really?
Right.
Yeah, so they are like openly called it 5-star jihad.
Okay.
So that was 5-star jihad. Afghanistan,
yes,
1 star. No, 1. Like, it's really bad now. Yeah. Right. I mean, I know a couple of people who are fighting there, like they couldn't get a cell phone reception in weeks. Like you send a text message, you're waiting for text message back a week. That's 0-star jihad. I mean.
Yes. What global struggle, right?
Yeah, it's really hard.
Okay. Rustam, Farukh, do you want to add something to that?
Question to me? Okay.
Well, if you want to add. Yeah.
So if we are talking about their social background and social portrait of who is our radical or ISIS followers, so they are pretty mixed and from different backgrounds, actually. So, and we can divide them into some groups. The first is really very religious guys, really religious people from countryside with very low level of education, etc., and they have only religious outlook and everything see in just white and black colors. Just this is halal and this is haram, and this is they are Muslims and they are Kafirs, etc. So this is the first group, and also there are some group of people with criminal backgrounds, actually. Like, for example, Abu Khalid Kulubi was drug dealer. Really, he was drug dealer, and he was not very religious, and he doesn't know Arabic, etc. So he was a drug dealer, and actually some people with criminal background actually moved to Syria, hiding themselves from our forces. And the third one also is group with, I used to say, such kind of crisis of identity from mixed, from their neophytes and new converted to Islam, or they are from mixed families, like half Russian, half Tajik, or half, I don't know, Ukrainian maybe, or half Uzbek, etc. And they face the real problem of identity, because maybe in Soviet periods they were high class, and if they speak Russian, etc. But in nowadays situation, they are not true Tajiks, and so they have to be very religious, so, and to show that they are super Muslims, and trying to overcome such kind of problems with their identity. And also there is a group of people who are actually not radicalized absolutely, like women followed their husbands, or like just labor migrants who were actually working in Russia and were said that there is a good job in Turkey, and they are actual victims of human traffic, and they are not radicalized absolutely. When you interview them, they even cannot pray and don't know basic things about religion, etc. So these are 4 groups maybe, and there are some other single examples, but actually, yeah, it's from different groups, and there is no social group immune to radical propaganda to be radicalized, and so I can say it for sure because of my experience of interviewing different victims and casualties. So,
which makes prevention extremely difficult, I imagine.
Yes.
Farukh, do you want to add something to that?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I think same here. I totally agree with what Vera and Rustam said. And well, we haven't been dealing with men a lot, but if we say about women, then all of them are with totally different social, educational, and economic backgrounds. But what I can say is like majority of them are saying like we just followed our husbands, and majority of them, or not them, their husbands were radicalized while being migrants, basically in Russia or Turkey. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Next question is to Vera. What is the future of Al-Hol camp? What will happen with those who are in the camp if countries of origin refuse to take them back?
Well, no one knows. It's as easy as that. Absolutely no one knows. No one has a plan. Kurds, SDF, from time to time say, okay, we're going to prosecute them here in the house. Some people are right now, there is discussion of moving whatever leftovers would be to Iraq to serve their sentence and be prosecuted, which is very questionable in international law, but whatever. So no, there is no consensus, no plan, no nothing at that point. And okay, we're quite sure that, okay, the big countries would take Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkey, Uzbekistan, they will take. Who would be left? Finally, UK and France, who are refusing to take absolutely totally, they will. You know, there are a lot of like trials right now going on in Supreme Court, waiting Supreme Court decisions. Their democracy, it would push, they would take. They have 3.5 people, right? But there are some people we have, like, there is absolutely no idea what to do with them. Example is Uyghurs. What are you gonna, like, big group, like big, sending them back to China? Are you kidding me? Like, I mean, no one, first of all, no one is gonna just sign this decision. It's nuts. So no one knows what to do with them.
Okay, thank you. We have 4 minutes left, and we are addressing international audiences. So maybe we can talk a little bit what we can, what kind of international cooperation assistance is needed for Central Asian states to manage with this problem. Who wants to give an advice or recommendation?
I mean, I think I could just start with like not a Central Asian approach, but from the other side of, let's say, Iraq, right, where I live and work for 5-6 years. One of the biggest question, again, following the whole question, is talking about repatriation of women. So we have people in Iraq right now, and like right now we're deciding if countries want to take them back, right? We didn't address the issue of the one Middle Eastern country doesn't want to give them. So right now, for example, Iraq, they give all the kids. Yeah, kids could go after trial, just go home, whatever. But the women, they are not giving.
Okay.
So they got death sentence and life sentence. I mean, it's really hardcore there. And they were like, it's our law, we're not going to give. So like, first, from like global international issue with Middle East, it's not just, it's ball is not always on the side of Central Asian countries.
Okay, I see. And women, are they ready to send their kids back generally, or
from where? From Baghdad prison? Oh yeah, from Baghdad prison, I don't know one who refused.
Okay.
Like, Baghdad prison is so terrible that they don't even care whom to send it to. Just go.
Okay.
The Al-Hol is much more tricky. So right now there was a Sweden delegation, I know, last week in Al-Hol saying a woman who wants to send kids back home, we're taking them, and like no one gave. Germany is saying no one gave, because first of all, it's not that bad, and second of all, they're just afraid that the minute they're going to send their kids home, no one would care about them.
Right.
So they're kind of keeping them as hostage, I would say.
Okay, that's so sad. Okay. Rustam, maybe you have some recommendations.
Yes, actually, the most important thing we do need actually all countries support to build actually capacity of our specialists to work with them, because I noticed that we don't have specialists, and there are some psychologists from Ministry of Education, and they actually have no idea how to deal with returnees. However, they do all their best, and also every country needs some such kind of financial support, and it's obviously for our countries with our economic situation. But in case of Tajikistan, we can say that all of them are under the total 100% protection of government. But anyway, it will be better to train some of our specialists to just increase their capacity and to increase the level of our resilience for issue. Okay. So that's the most important thing I would like to focus on.
Thank you. Farooq? in case of?
Yeah, I think that whichever country wants to bring their citizens, ISIS affiliates back home, they need first to prepare their people, their communities, and their governments, and their structure, and their resources for them. Because otherwise it's very difficult to re-socialize them and to rehabilitate and reintegrate them. That's a lot of work actually, and more the work should be done in communities just to uh, just so there will not be any stigma and difficulties and for those people, because the the stigmatization is very bad and for rehabilitation. And there should be a lot of, like Rustam said, a lot of people, like professionals, to work with those people. Rehabilitation is not easy, and it's a psychological work and basically social work. And just we need to train people, we need to prepare people who will work with them, and not like one NGO or government, I think cannot deal with it. We should work together.
Okay.
NGOs, government, civil society. Thank you.
Don't forget academics. Okay. Thank you so much. Our time is up. Let me thank the panelists for this highly informative discussion, and let me thank the audience for joining us.